In 1946, an American family could disappear into the mountains for a week, carrying little more than an axe, a rifle, a canvas tent, and a coffee pot. Many of the camping tricks they relied on every single day would now earn you hefty fines or even criminal charges in parts of the United States. These weren't reckless survival hacks. They were ordinary practices taught by parents, Boy Scouts, hunters, and park rangers. Several normal until surprisingly recently. We're counting down 20 of them. Number 1 represents the biggest philosophical shift in American camping history. It starts at number 20. Number 20, cutting evergreen boughs for bedding once marked the start of any real camping trip. Generations of campers, hunters, and Boy Scouts learned to gather fresh pine or spruce branches, layering them thick on the forest floor for warmth and comfort. This simple ritual, described in classic outdoor manuals and early scout handbooks, offered relief from cold ground and damp nights. Today, that familiar crackle of fresh boughs under a canvas bedroll has all but disappeared from public lands. Modern rules now forbid removing branches or needles, citing the need to protect forest litter, prevent erosion, and preserve fragile habitats. What was once a sign of good campcraft is now a violation in most national parks and wilderness areas, a quiet symbol of how camping's everyday comforts have given way to a new ethic of preservation. Number 19, building large stone fire rings once signaled a campsite meant for more than a single night. Generations of campers arranged heavy rocks in broad circles, creating a permanent hearth that anchored the social heart of camp. Classic guides from the 1930s and 1940s describe the process as essential, laying stones to contain flames, shield against wind, and mark a place for gathering. These fire rings left lasting marks, compressing soil and scorching the earth beneath. Today, land managers discourage or prohibit constructing new stone circles, citing the scars they leave on fragile ground and the push to erase visible traces of human presence. The ritual of building a communal fire ring has faded, replaced by portable stoves or strict use of designated fire sites, reflecting the shift from working landscape to protected wilderness. Number 18, gathering deadfall for unlimited firewood once stood at the heart of American campcraft. In the era of canvas tents and cast iron skillets, campers expected to collect all the fallen branches and logs they needed right from the forest floor. Whether for boiling coffee at dawn or keeping warm through a chilly night, this practice was considered both practical and respectful, using what the land freely offered. Today, the simple act of collecting deadwood is often tightly controlled or outright banned. Land managers now recognize that fallen timber plays a vital role in soil health, provides habitat for insects and birds, and recycles nutrients back into the ecosystem. Restrictions also guard against the spread of invasive pests hidden in transported firewood. The freedom to gather fuel on site has faded, replaced by rules that reflect a new understanding of the forest as a living, interconnected community. Number 17, digging camp trenches around tents once stood as a mark of careful campcraft. Through much of the 20th century, campers and scouts learned to carve shallow ditches around canvas tents, shaping the earth to steer rainwater away from bedding and gear. Manuals from the 1930s praised this as practical engineering, an essential step for any long stay in unpredictable weather. Today, the simple act of trenching is strictly forbidden in most parks and public lands. Modern regulations cite erosion, soil compaction, and the disruption of delicate ecosystems as reasons to keep shovels out of the ground. What was once a sign of responsibility is now seen as lasting harm, reflecting a shift from hands-on problem-solving to careful preservation. Number 16, sleeping in natural rock shelters once offered instant sanctuary to anyone caught out in the wild. Hunters, trappers, and long-distance travelers saw caves, overhangs, and shallow rock alcoves as ready-made protection from wind, rain, and sudden storms. These stone refuges required no tools, no cutting, and no fire, just a keen eye for a safe spot. In the mid-20th century, taking shelter in a cave was as ordinary as pitching a tent. Today, access to rock shelters is often restricted or outright closed. Modern land managers cite the need to protect fragile wildlife habitats, preserve archaeological sites, and prevent damage to delicate formations. What was once an act of common sense survival now runs up against conservation closures and seasonal bans, reflecting how even untouched natural shelter can conflict with the new priorities of preservation. Number 15 brings back the everyday ritual of fishing for dinner. For much of the 20th century, families would set up camp near a stream or lake, trusting that a fresh catch would supply the evening meal. Fishing was woven into the fabric of outdoor life. No special license required, no strict seasons or daily limits to worry about. Campers simply cast a line, kept what they needed, and moved on. Over time, the introduction of state fishing licenses, closed seasons, and catch limits transformed this open-handed approach into a tightly managed activity. Today, federal lands defer to state angling rules, and most public waters enforce strict regulations to protect fish populations for future generations. What was once an assumed part of camping self-reliance has become a carefully structured privilege, marking another step in the shift from working landscape to preserved recreation. Number 14 recalls the everyday act of foraging wild plants for camp meals, a skill once woven into the fabric of American outdoor life. Berries, mushrooms, wild onions, and edible greens were gathered not as a novelty, but as practical additions to daily fare. Classic outdoor manuals treated this knowledge as standard wood sense, teaching campers and scouts to recognize edible plants for seasoning, nutrition, and emergency food. The landscape itself became a living pantry, offering sustenance to those who knew where to look. Today, modern rules have redrawn these boundaries. Concerns over rare species, fragile habitats, and the cumulative impact of casual harvest have led to strict limits on plant gathering across most public lands. In some places, only federally recognized tribes retain the right to collect certain plants for cultural use, while recreational foraging is banned outright. What was once an ordinary part of camp life now sits at the crossroads of tradition and preservation, a reminder of how deeply the meaning of wilderness has changed. Number 13, cutting saplings to build camp furniture once stood as a badge of resourcefulness among American campers. Outdoor manuals and Boy Scout handbooks from the 1930s and 1940s offered step-by-step guides for transforming young trees into rustic tables, chairs, cooking racks, and even makeshift camp gates. For families and scout troops planning longer stays, these structures brought a sense of home to the wild, blending comfort with practical know-how. Today, the act of harvesting live saplings is strictly off-limits in most parks and forests. Modern conservation rules protect young growth, recognizing that every sapling removed slows the regeneration of future forests. The shift from using deadfall or loose materials to cutting living trees marks a turning point in how Americans relate to the land, moving from a tradition of hands-on utility to a focus on preservation and ecological recovery. Number 12 recalls the era when cooking over an open fire was as natural as unrolling a sleeping bag. From the 1920s through the 1950s, campers, scouts, and families alike expected to build a fire wherever they stopped, whether deep in forest country or along a quiet lakeshore. A crackling flame meant more than warmth. It was the heart of every meal, the centerpiece of evening gatherings, and a skill passed down through generations. But the freedom to light a fire almost anywhere faded as wildfire tragedies reshaped policy. The Mann Gulch disaster in 1949 and the sweeping Yellowstone fires of 1988 led to a new era of fire restrictions, seasonal bans, and strict permits. Today, open fire cooking is one of the most tightly regulated aspects of camping, a far cry from the days when a simple campfire marked the start of every adventure. Number 11 recalls a time when hunting small game was woven into the fabric of American camping. Rabbits, squirrels, and grouse weren't just targets for sport. They were vital sources of protein gathered as part of daily camp life. For families, scouts, and hunting parties on extended trips, the line between recreation and subsistence blurred. A fresh rabbit stew or roasted grouse meant practical self-reliance, not just an outdoor adventure. Today, that seamless blend has fractured. Modern regulations divide hunting and camping with strict license requirements, defined seasons, and species limits. National parks now separate recreation from wildlife take, reflecting a broader shift from living off the land to protecting its wild inhabitants. Number 10 brings back the era when a full-size axe belonged in every camper's kit. From the 1920s through the 1950s, carrying an axe was as ordinary as packing a bedroll or coffee pot. The axe wasn't just for splitting firewood. It cleared trails, trimmed tent poles, and handled the rough work of building a handmade camp. Outdoor manuals and early scout handbooks treated it as an essential tool, emblematic of self-reliance and resourcefulness. Today, most developed campgrounds either discourage or outright ban heavy cutting tools, citing safety concerns and a shift toward low-impact camping. The sound of steel on wood, once a familiar part of setting up camp, has faded into memory, replaced by pre-cut firewood and rules designed to protect crowded public spaces. Number 9 brings back a time when the sight of a cold, clear mountain stream meant safe, refreshing water. For generations, campers and scouts trusted the sparkle of a high country brook, dipping tin cups or cupped hands straight into the current. Early outdoor manuals and Boy Scout handbooks described this as common sense. Wilderness water was believed to be naturally pure, untouched by pollution or disease. It wasn't until the late 1970s and early 1980s when scientists began tracing outbreaks of Giardia and other microscopic threats that the old confidence began to fade. National Park Service water studies in the 1980s made treatment the new standard, warning that even the clearest stream could carry invisible risks. Today, drinking untreated water is discouraged or outright banned in most public lands, reflecting a dramatic shift in both science and outdoor culture. What once symbolized wild freedom now serves as a cautionary tale about unseen dangers and the evolving rules of backcountry safety. 8th place goes to the classic log lean-to shelter, a structure once built by hand from whatever the forest offered. For generations, campers, scouts, and trappers knew how to stack saplings and branches into a sturdy wall, angled against the wind and rain, then roofed with boughs or bark. Field books from the 1930s treated lean-to construction as a skill every outdoorsman should master, especially when weather turned or a trip stretched longer than planned. Building a lean-to meant more than pitching a tent. It meant reshaping the landscape, turning raw materials into real shelter. Today, nearly all public lands forbid cutting or gathering the wood and brush needed for such projects. Modern rules protect living trees and downed wood alike, making the lean-to a relic of an era when campers shaped their campsites as much as they adapted to them. Number 7 recalls a chore that once blended seamlessly into the rhythms of camp life, washing dishes right in the nearest stream. For much of the 20th century, campers treated the waterway as an extension of their kitchen, scrubbing pots and plates on smooth stones, rinsing with cold current, and sending soap suds and crumbs downstream. Even biodegradable soap was considered harmless, a sign of conscientious cleanup. But food scraps and grease attracted wildlife, and over time, routine dishwashing began to cloud water quality and disrupt fragile aquatic habitats. Today, nearly all public lands prohibit washing cookware in streams, requiring campers to carry water away from the bank and strain waste before dispersing it on soil. What was once a practical everyday act now stands as a marker of shifting ethics, where the health of the watershed outweighs the old convenience of washing up at the water's edge. Number 6 recalls the quiet ingenuity of using moss, leaves, and forest litter as insulation beneath a bedroll. For decades, campers treated the woodland floor as part of their bedding kit, gathering handfuls of soft moss or raking together a thick layer of fallen leaves to cushion and insulate against the cold ground. Outdoor manuals and scout handbooks describe this practice as both practical and resourceful, especially when modern sleeping pads were rare or unavailable. Today, the forest litter that once served as makeshift comfort is protected by conservation rules. Land managers now recognize that this layer holds vital moisture, shelters insects, and slowly builds the soil that sustains the entire forest. The simple act of gathering moss or leaves for a night's sleep has shifted from common sense to prohibited, reflecting how even the smallest details of camp life have been redefined by a deeper commitment to ecological stewardship. In the fifth place, creating permanent hunting camps once blurred the line between a temporary shelter and a second home in the woods. For generations, hunters and trappers returned to the same handcrafted spots season after season, building up log cabins, lean-tos, and hidden storage caches that transformed a patch of forest into a recurring base of operations. These camps became landmarks in family stories, their walls etched with the marks of long winters and successful hunts. Early field books and Boy Scout manuals described how to weatherproof cabins, stash supplies for the next year, and even leave tools behind for return visits. Today, public land rules have drawn a sharp boundary. The Wilderness Act and state-level Forever Wild provisions ban permanent structures and long-term occupation, aiming to keep the land open and unclaimed. What once felt like responsible stewardship, maintaining a home away from home, now stands at odds with the principle of leaving no trace, marking a profound shift in how Americans are allowed to belong to the backcountry. In the fourth place, trapping small animals around camp once stood as a pillar of frontier survival and rural self-reliance. For generations, campers, scouts, and homesteaders set simple snares and box traps for rabbits, squirrels, and other small game, often within steps of their tents or cabins. Manuals from the 1930s described these skills as essential knowledge, blending practical woodcraft with the realities of living off the land. In many rural families, trapping was not just a lesson in resourcefulness, it was a daily necessity, woven into the rhythms of camp life. Today, the landscape of wildlife regulation has transformed this tradition. Modern laws treat trapping as a specialized activity, bound by strict licensing, seasonal limits, and protections for vulnerable species. What was once an ordinary act of campcraft is now tightly controlled, reflecting a shift from subsistence and self-reliance to careful stewardship and ethical debate over the place of trapping in America's wild spaces. Coming to the top three, collecting fallen timber for shelter construction once stood at the heart of backcountry ingenuity. In the era of logging camps and trapping lines, a forest floor scattered with downed trees was seen as an open invitation to build sturdy walls, windproof roofs, and work sheds that could withstand a mountain storm. Manuals from the 1930s and 1940s treated this as common sense. Deadwood was a practical, renewable supply, free for the taking. The mindset was clear: if a tree had fallen, it was meant to be used. Today, that same fallen timber is recognized as a cornerstone of forest health. Modern regulations protect deadwood as a vital resource, home to insects, birds, and fungi, and a slow-release source of nutrients for the soil. Removing it is now tightly restricted or outright banned on most public lands, marking a dramatic shift from treating the woods as a workshop to honoring them as a living ecosystem. In second place, living off the land for weeks once defined the heart of American camping. Throughout the 1920s to the 1950s, families, scouts, and trappers often treated the forest not as a weekend escape, but as a temporary home. Campsites became small outposts where fishing, foraging, hunting, and gathering firewood were all part of daily routine. Clean water came straight from streams. Meals relied on whatever the land provided, and the length of a stay was measured by need, not by a calendar. Outdoor manuals and early Boy Scout handbooks described how to blend these skills into a seamless system of self-sufficiency, setting up camp for as long as supplies and energy allowed. Today, that way of life has been replaced by a patchwork of permits, stay limits, and designated use areas. The 14-day rule now draws a sharp boundary, and the old vision of living with the land rather than simply visiting has faded into memory, preserved only in stories and the pages of vintage field books. And finally, in first place, the greatest change is not a single trick, but a way of seeing the wild itself. For much of the 20th century, American campers, hunters, and scouts treated forests as temporary homes, a place to live, build, cook, repair, harvest, and solve problems as needs arose. The woods were not simply a backdrop for recreation, but a working landscape shaped by daily use and practical necessity. Outdoor manuals and early scout handbooks taught skills for surviving and thriving, from gathering boughs for bedding to building furniture from saplings and cooking over open flames. This hands-on philosophy reflected a belief in self-reliance and stewardship, where the land provided both challenge and comfort. Over the past 70 years, that worldview has faded. Modern conservation frames wilderness as a protected sanctuary, emphasizing preservation, wildlife protection, and low-impact recreation. Rules now define how long you may stay, what you may touch, and how little you should alter the land. The shift from living with the land to visiting it under strict guidelines explains why so many traditional practices have disappeared. It marks a profound transformation not only in regulations, but in the very meaning of camping and belonging to America's wild places. Across all 20 practices, one truth stands out. America's relationship with wilderness has shifted from rugged self-reliance to careful stewardship. What was once common knowledge passed down in camps and families now gives way to rules that protect fragile landscapes and wildlife. This evolution reflects both what we've lost and what we've learned. The history of camping is, at heart, a story of changing values. Which era would you choose? Let us know below.